Hold on to what is good, even if it's only a handful of dirt.
Well, let's just start by talking about why Putin did what he has done. My view all along has been that this crisis, which now is an actual war, is all about the West's efforts to make Ukraine a Western bulwark on Russia's borders. It all started back in April 2008 at the NATO summit in Bucharest, where NATO announced that Ukraine and Georgia would become members of NATO at some point. The Russians, and Putin in particular, made it unequivocally clear at that time that this was crossing a red line. This was unacceptable. This represented an existential threat to Russia. They made that very clear. The crisis broke out on February 22nd, 2014, and the West responded by doubling down. And when President Biden moved into the White House in January of 2021, he went further than the Trump administration did in backing Ukraine. And we, in effect, were crossing a red line. We were presenting an existential threat to the Russians. And the Russians made this unequivocally clear to us, and we continued to double down. And the end result is on February 24th of this year, Putin invaded Ukraine. Now, many people say that Putin invaded Ukraine because he wants to conquer Ukraine and integrate it into a greater Russia. He's interested in recreating the Soviet Union. This is nonsense. There's no evidence to support that. This is all about NATO expansion and, more generally, the West's efforts to make Ukraine a bulwark, a Western bulwark on Russia's borders. Well, it's very hard to say because this war has not played itself out yet. There's no question that he was pursuing what I would call a limited aim strategy. He wanted to conquer some territory in Ukraine, mainly in the east, and he was interested in either regime change or getting the existing regime to change its policy with regard to joining NATO or joining the West. There's no question that the Russian military forces have run into a buzzsaw with the Ukrainians. And this is because NATO, and especially the United States, has been supporting Ukraine all along and trying to turn Ukraine into a de facto member of NATO. That's why Ukraine has performed so well on the battlefield. So the Russians have had their hands full, but the Russians are doubling down now. And where this all leads is very hard to say. And you just want to remember the Russians view what's happening in Ukraine as an existential threat. And if the Russians lose in Ukraine, and at the same time the West succeeds at strangling the Russian economy, there will be very powerful pressures brought to bear on Putin to escalate the crisis, to possibly use nuclear weapons. Now, I want to be very clear. I'm not making the argument that that is likely. I'm just saying that is a real possibility. You want to remember, Putin views this set of events that's taking place in Ukraine as an existential threat. And when states face existential threats, the historical record is very clear here. They pursue risky policies. So I think we're in dangerous waters here because it's not clear the Russians are going to prevail. For the United States, there is one serious threat in the world today, and it's China. It is not Russia. China is a peer competitor. It threatens to be a regional hegemon in Asia. The United States should be focusing laser like on China. It should be working overtime to think about how to contain China. And at the same time, it should be working with Russia as an ally to help contain China. India, Russia, the United States should all be on the same side of the ledger, all bent on containing China, because China has the potential to be a remarkably powerful country. Instead, what the United States has foolishly done is it has picked a fight with Russia. It is bogged down in Eastern Europe. It has done remarkably little in Asia, especially in East Asia, to explain to its allies how it plans to contain China because it's too busy thinking about how to fight the Russians. And we shouldn't be fighting the Russians. We should be working to have some sort of alliance with the Russians, again, all for the purposes of containing China. But we're not doing that. This tells you very simply that there's one winner as a result of this Ukraine war, and that winner is China. I don't think that American unhappiness with India, and there's no question the Biden administration is unhappy with India, as President Biden made clear to Mr. Modi yesterday. So we're unhappy, or the administration is unhappy, but it doesn't matter very much. The United States needs India. The United States has a rich history of having fundamental disagreements with India, and we've gotten used to that. But more importantly, we need India for purposes of containing China. So I don't think there's any serious danger of a rupture in relations between the two countries. I think from India's point of view, it is not a good thing that the Americans are bogged down in Eastern Europe and have lost sight of the importance of the China threat, because India, the United States, and Russia, as I said before, should all be on the same page vis-a-vis China. We're in this rather bizarre situation where it makes no strategic sense for the United States to be trying to drive a wedge between India and Russia. If anything, we should be happy that they're working together, but we can't be, because we are in this remarkably foolish war in Ukraine. And you want to remember, we're not doing any of the actual fighting now, but we are deeply involved. We're doing everything but the fighting. And all of our sort of intellectual capital is being focused on Eastern Europe now. We're not thinking about how to deal with China. And again, this is, from our point of view, a terrible situation. But you never want to lose sight of the fact that it's Ukraine that is paying the greatest price here. This country is being destroyed. And I argued long ago that this is what would happen. Right? I'm not saying that this is justified. I'm just saying that this is what happens when you poke a great power like Russia in the eye and you present it with an existential threat. You do not want to underestimate how ruthless great powers can be. And this includes the United States of America as well as Russia when they think they're facing an existential threat. And again, Vladimir Putin thinks he's facing an existential threat. And in my opinion, that makes him very dangerous.